Says we're live. Hello, everyone. It's Tuesday. It's 4 o'clock Pacific, 7 o'clock Eastern, midnight here in London, 1 a.m. in Central Europe. 1 a.m. in Central Europe, 8:30 a.m. Wednesday morning in Australia, and it's Facebook Live. Hello, everyone. It's really great to be with you once again. And Marzi and I have been here in England for about 5 days now. Did a couple of talks, and they went really well. Wonderful people, very receptive and open, and it's just a pleasure to share this information. And in the morning, I'm off to the States and some talks there. I've got a couple of questions that I wasn't able to get to in the last couple of Facebook Lives. And so before our guest comes on, unless there's a problem and they can't, I'm just going to start with the questions that I remember that need to be answered. The first one was, can we combine Lactobacillus with soil-based probiotics? Sure, you can. Absolutely. You know, the idea of probiotics is that they can Marzi had to get me on so I can see questions that are coming in from you guys. The idea of probiotics is that they're safe to take, and taking different ones is okay. I can't think of any problem whatsoever in doing that. I'm not sure it's necessary. There may be some cases when you want specific probiotics. As an example, when my grandson had colic a couple of months ago, and we targeted both the spores, the Mega Spore product, which I recommend to everyone for my daughter who was breastfeeding, but also Bifidobacterium infantis for baby. So Kelly took some of it, extract a little breast milk, mix it up in there with some, open up the capsule and put it on Joshua's inside his mouth or on her nipple as he was breastfeeding. So targeting some specific probiotics at times is of value, absolutely of value. Diane wrote that, Dr. O'Brien, you must have a bionic gut. Do you ever become ill? Yeah, it happens. You know, if I push too hard and don't take care of myself, absolutely that will happen. So let me say hello to a few people that have joined here. Let's see. Luann's in from Colorado, Aurora, Colorado. Hi, Luann. Sherry's here from Woodstock, and my phone just froze, so I can't say anything more than that at the moment, but we'll figure out who's there here. And you, as you guys know, when you give me hearts and thumbs up and little emojis like that, I just start laughing my head off. Maria, you're welcome. And it fires me up and keeps me going. So let's go to another question that I've got on my list that I hadn't answered for people. Jenny says, how about the people who have alcohol allergies? Can they eat fermented foods? Really good question. It depends. That many allergies to alcohol are a histamine-based sensitivity. And if you have a histamine-based sensitivity, fermented foods are irritant. They're an irritant to fermentation. They're an irritant to the gut. So I would be cautious with that. And one of the treatments for people that have histamine sensitivities, and some of them can be quite annoying to work with, is to baby step in fermented foods. What do I mean by that? Maybe you take a half of a teaspoon that you push down into the sauerkraut, you get the juice, and you mix it up in a whole bowl of soup or in your salad dressing on your salad. So you can't taste it at all. And you want to start with the amount that you don't have any reaction to, and below, you just want to be below that reactionary level. And then you do that every day for a week or 2 weeks, and then you add a little bit more, and then you add a little bit more. Then maybe you add a couple of threads of sauerkraut or other fermented vegetables, and you just tear it up slowly So that explosion is not activating the alarm signals in your gut. And what you're doing is helping to build a stronger microbiome, which changes the level of histamine sensitivity. That's the idea there. So Paula says Alaska's in the house, and John's here and says hello from Los Oscos, O-S-O-S, Osos. Jim says great to be here. Thanks, Jim. Mary says root veggies. Is there a best way to prepare to get most nutrition? Boil versus saute versus bake? That's a good question. And in general, I say no, because it's the fiber that you want. And even if it's softened up a little bit and easier to digest, but in general principles, you want to avoid boiling your vegetables, because a lot of the nutrients go into the water. All the water, not all, but water soluble nutrients will leach out of the food into the water. I mean, reminds me when I was growing up, my mother would put a can of green beans in boiling water to warm them up, right? So the green beans would always be like just not quite mush, but really soft, overcooked. And a lot of the nutrient is lost when you do that. Also remember, the higher the heat, the more alteration is done to food. That's why you never microwave food, never. Why? Because microwave kills everything. It kills everything. So you're eating dead food. And our ancestors ate almost all raw food, almost, not quite, but almost all raw food. And we all would do better to have some raw food in our diet, maybe 20% to 30%, maybe more, depending on the individual. Raw food, that would make a difference. But boiling just leaches out the nutrients. So too much heat is a problem because it alters proteins, and cooking food in water can drain out the water soluble nutrients. Both of those we would want to avoid as much as we can. Let's see. Buster says, my daughter has ulcerative colitis for past 8 years and has come to a point where she cannot tolerate hardly any kind of food. How can she improve the diversity of foods? As I just said about the microbiome, you want one of the treatments for ulcerative colitis is to rebuild the microbiome. That's a critical component. What is ulcerative colitis? The colon, the last part of the intestine that comes up on the right side, across under the ribs, and down the left side, the colon has an inflammation. What does that sound like? Colitis. Colitis means the colon's inflamed. Arthritis means your joints are inflamed. So the question is, where's the gas? Is it gasoline or kerosene? Where is it coming from? That's true with every itis. So there's some kind of trigger for your daughter, who's unfortunately been suffering for 8 years, that has of yet, they've not identified the trigger. Where's the itis coming from? And that sounds so simplistic, but it really is the basis of so much of our successful healthcare, is identifying what's the trigger, what's causing the inflammation, because every degenerative disease is a disease of inflammation. At the cellular level, the cell is always on fire, right? But is it gasoline or kerosene? Is it a brain cell or a kidney cell? Those are the kinds of questions you have to ask. Shirley says, hello, it's Shirley in Southern Idaho. Mary says, thank you so much. Thanks, Mary. Doug says, hey, Doc, and everyone else. That's from Doug Seifert. And Maria says, hi, Dr. Tom, glad I found you. Thank you, Maria. Thanks so much. Maria's asked the question, is it okay to occasionally fry zucchini? Absolutely, absolutely. We don't have to be perfect. I saute vegetables all the time. It's great. They taste great. You use a little coconut oil or a little almond oil, avocado oil. Best not to cook with olive oil. What oil you use, one of the criteria to determine which oil to use in your cooking is what's its heat threshold. In other words, at some point, oils will smoke. When they smoke, they've oxidized. When they've oxidized and you eat them, they cause oxidative damage in your body. When you get oxidative damage in your body, that's the free electrons that are bouncing around in there and they damage cells. It increases aging. The more, the higher the degree of cooked food you eat, and the higher the degree that food was cooked, the higher the degree in general for more oxidative damage when you eat that food. That doesn't take away from the value of the fiber or from the quality of the protein of the meat. Those are really important concepts. You know, it's not just one tenet or rule that you have to live by here. You know, there are a number of different factors to take into account when we're eating. And I'd like to see everyone have about 20 to 30% raw food in their diet on a daily basis. You know, I've been talking about using root vegetables. You've all heard that. And when I talk about root vegetables, I make the joke, I don't know how to cook a rutabaga. Well, neither do I. You know, and you just dice them up with some onions and garlic and saute it all up together, add a little sauce to it, and get it down. When we go to nice restaurants, you often see finely shaved slices of radish curled up in the salad or served on top of the risotto or whatever it is that you're eating. You know, so raw foods are even often the decoration. I always eat the parsley off the table. So I'll take the parsley and I might dip it in the glass of water that is on the table. And then I'll eat the parsley. I dip it to wash off any chemicals that might be around or any bugs, you know, bacteria and stuff like that. So I'll just dip it in there at the table and then eat the parsley. Let's see. Maria says, hey, glad I found you. Mary says, hey, Doug, got my answer. I don't know what's going on there, but say yes, Doug, and give her the answer. Andre says, maybe a visit to Brazil. Oh, thank you, Andre. I would love to come back to Brazil. I really enjoy teaching there. The practitioners are very receptive. I'm actually going to Lisbon in about 10 days. So I go to the US now for a few different talks, and then I'll meet Marzi back in Lisbon. And our friend Laia Ribeiro, Dr. Laia Ribeiro from Brazil, will be joining us in Lisbon for a conference, the Second International Conference on Healthy Aging in Lisbon. I think it's in 2 weeks from now. Let's see. Adriana says, Dr. Tom, do you have recommendations to look into for EMF sensitivity? I'm just starting to research this information. You will save so much time, Adriana, if you go to Green Med Info and you register as I don't know what their categories are. I think it's something like $45 a month, or maybe I want to say $85, but that seems like a lot, but I'm not sure. And if you support them that way, you get complete access to their library. And they've got thousands and thousands of articles, but more importantly, they've got hundreds and hundreds of written articles, not research articles, but written articles on different topics. And I'd start there at Green Med Info and look at EMF and look at all the articles that they've summarized already and what the bullet points are of those articles. It'll save you so much time. And that's my friend Sire G is the brains behind Green Med Info. And he's just such a pure heart trying to carry information out to the world that he's one of the two guys I support. The other is my friend Jeffrey Smith, about the pioneer and the voice behind GMO understanding of the dangers of GMO. That's Jeffrey in the Institute for Responsible Technology, and Sire at Green Med Info. You know, these guys devote their lives to this. So those are the two I support. So I'd go there. It'll save you so much time if you do that. Helen says, can you send more info on Lisbon? Oh, hi, Helen. Well, hopefully we'll get to meet there. I don't have any more info than that. It's the Second International Conference on Healthy Aging in Lisbon. It's in a couple of weeks. You'll find it online, both in Portuguese and in English there. Michelle asks, how's the coronavirus in Italy? I hear it's not good. Marcy and I haven't been in Italy for about 6 weeks now, I think. Been traveling around and so I don't know. I don't follow the news very much, but I've seen, no, actually that's not true. I saw it in the hotel lobby today, 72 deaths in Italy now versus 40 something a couple days ago. So I'm posting some things. I'm sending out a couple of videos about how do we strengthen our immune system. The main problem is with the coronavirus, apparently, and I'm no expert on this, but apparently it's the people with compromised immune systems who are having the worst reactions. Who's that? Well, that's people who have low secretory IgA in a stool analysis. They've got low total IgA, IgG, or IgM in a blood test. Their immune system is probably, most of these people, worn down from working so hard trying to protect you from all of the toxins that your immune system's been exposed to. What do I mean by that? Well, bad air. If you live in a moldy house, your immune system's fighting 24/7 to deal with the mold. And usually it's pretty good at doing that, but when you keep having added exposure, you're breathing the air in the house every day, 24 hours a day when you're in the house, you're breathing the air, you're getting more mold spores, more mold spores, more mold spores. It doesn't stop and your system gets overwhelmed. That's why mold is such a problem for so many people, is because it's an overwhelm factor. Your immune system's overwhelmed. And people who get recurrent colds and flus, their immune systems are overwhelmed. Some children are born with compromised immune systems, but that's not the normal. The normal is we've worn them down. They're trying to protect us and we've just worn them down so often. Anna says, I'm allergic to dogs, but I still have one. Even though she's hypoallergenic, I still have allergies to her. Would this continued exposure to this allergen make my immune system weaker? The answer is absolutely yes. No, it doesn't make it weaker. It keeps demanding the energy of the immune system to address this allergen, dog. And so the resources of your immune system to deal with coronavirus, to deal with bugs in the air, to deal with wheat, if you have a sensitivity to wheat, or to any other food you're sensitive to, the reserves of your immune system to deal with that are quite compromised, right? And depending on the individual and depending on the state of your immune system, and how much you're exposed to, you get more compromised and more compromised. That's what immunocompromised means. Your immune system is compromised. It's worn down because it's been working so hard to protect you. David says, hey, Dr. Tom from Ann Arbor. Hey, David, I spent 8 years. I love Ann Arbor. I really love Ann Arbor. What are your recommendations to boost the immune system to avoid a coronavirus infection? That's some of the things we're sending out. The first one, I'd get Dentocidin immediately. I'd get Biocidin, all 4 forms of Biocidin and Dentocidin, and we'll post the links here for those. Dentocidin is the toothpaste with Biocidin in it. And even kids like the taste of this. You brush 2-3 times a day. And then afterwards, you use Dentocidin LS, the little pump. I put 3 pumps in, swish it around for about 15 seconds. I should do a minute, but I don't take the time. So I do 15 seconds and I spit it out. And you just refreshened your breath, wiping out some of the colonies of bad bacteria in your mouth. Now you have over 800 different bacteria, different types of bacteria in the mouth, over 800. And when you use Dentocidin as your toothpaste of choice, you're cleaning out some of that every day. And then the Biocidin, we have handouts on our site of how to use Biocidin also. And Tiffany will post this, the links for the Biocidin products, the Dentocidin products, and the handout on how to use it and the dosing for Biocidin based on weight. It's my go-to product for the last 35 years. I've used Biocidin so often that it's done miraculously. You know, kids with ear infections, I'll put one drop in the ear. Maybe I'll mix it with a little olive oil. I'll put a couple drops of olive oil in my hand, and then that drop, and I'll take the syringe from the biocide, and then it's now empty, you know, and I press on the bulb and suck up that mixture, and then just squirt it in the ears of kids. It knocks out ear infections in one day. I mean, it's just marvelous how it works. Okay, John asks, is there any natural remedies for Dupuytren's contracture? And sure, the first thing that always helps is vitamin E, taking somewhere, depending on the study, 400 to 1,000 units of a full complex of the tocopherols of vitamin E, taking it internally, and then opening a capsule and rubbing it on your hands. My mentor, one of my mentors, early mentors, Jonathan Wright, talks about that. Dr. Wright has a book of natural remedies. It's just full of things like that from a lifetime in practice. I'm smiling because 2 weeks ago, I was a keynote speaker that opened up the conference, fourth International Conference on, can chronic disease be reversed? That was the name of it. Can chronic disease be reversed? The fourth International Can Chronic Disease Be Reversed Conference. And I was a kickoff speaker. And when I looked on the program, Jonathan Wright was following me, and I'd never met him before. So the story with Dr. Wright, this is 1975. And I'm a long-haired hippie living in Ann Arbor, working at a natural restaurant called Indian Summer, and I was the baker. Everyone believes that. I was the baker, hand rolling 48 loaves of bread a day. And it was really good bread. I called it destination bread. People drove miles to buy a loaf of that bread. It was really good. And I was reading Prevention magazine. This is when it's first new coming out. And there was this young medical doctor from the University of Michigan. So, oh, good, he's a brother already. He's in Ann Arbor, who was writing case studies every month. And those case studies, he'd take one patient that come in with one condition, like problems with urination. Turned out that he had kidney stones, early kidney stone formation, as an example. And Dr. Wright, this was Jonathan Wright, would talk about changing the diet, having more cherries, certain kind of cherries, and reducing your protein and take some vitamins. Then at the end, he would have some science, some studies as to why he recommended cherries or why he recommended the amino acids that he recommended. And I said, oh, this is very cool. I could do this kind of medicine someday. That might work. Hi, Misty. Hi, Misty. Welcome.
I've been waiting on you in the wrong room, and I just realized I was in the wrong room.
Oh, that's fine. Well, welcome. Glad you're here. I'm just going to complete this story, and then we'll get started.
Yes.
So I would read the case studies every month and really enjoyed it, and it gave me my first view of holistic medicine. And so when it was time, when I proposed to my ex-wife now, but when I proposed to her, realized I needed a real job. I couldn't teach martial arts anymore. Healthcare, holistic healthcare was right there. And so anyway, that was Jonathan Wright. And then I saw that he was going to be following me as the keynote at this conference 2 weeks ago. And so I started off by thanking the host. And then I said, you know, there are some people that are pioneers that have the courage to talk about things that nobody knows how to talk about, but so outside our realm of common everyday experience that they take a lot of flack for it. And one of those is the speaker that follows me today, Dr. Jonathan Wright. And then I told the story on stage of this was my first introduction to healthcare. So I said, so Dr. Wright, thank you so very much, sir, for being my first mentor. And the audience gave him a round of applause, and it was sweet. And I talked to him afterwards. We talked and we find out, hey, we could be buds. And at dinner that night, his wife, he leans over to his wife and he says, I found another geek. I found a friend. So my first mentor is now a friend, and it's really great. So I'm not sure what got me into that story to begin with, but our guest is here now, Misty Williams. And first thing I would say is that, Misty, I know how stressful that probably is. So I'm very sorry that happened to you, and don't worry about it.
I'm sorry. It's totally on me. I was just in the wrong place, but I'm
Yeah,
very
yeah, that's
now.
okay. Well, welcome. We're glad you're here. So Misty is an expert on the benefits of sleeping. And I wanted to have Misty come on because I don't do enough justice to the topic of sleeping. And it's so critically important. I'm just going to give a little couple of pearls here, and then we're going to get right into it. You know, we have two different nervous systems. We have a sympathetic nervous system and a parasympathetic nervous system. This is in the automatic stuff that happens in our body. There's a category called autonomic nervous system. And in the autonomic nervous system, you've got parasympathetic and sympathetic. The parasympathetic nervous system is the one that's in flight or in action when you are on the fifth day of a 2-week vacation. If you've ever had a 2-week vacation, you know that after about 4 or 5 days, you just start calming down and you're in the flow of the event, especially if it's like a little cottage on the beach, or, you're taking your family to a water resort and in cabins or in the woods, and you're doing a routine every day and not so much touristy amusement park stuff, but things in the environment are like that. And what does that mean? The parasympathetic nervous system is the one that is the calming effect, a slow heart rate, lots of blood flowing out to your muscles, and deep breaths, deep respiration, as opposed to your eyeballs are just relaxed, your brain is open, you can daydream, you can envision your future, you come up with creative new ideas. That's the parasympathetic nervous system. The sympathetic nervous system is the fight, flight, or fright. The one that you get scared, immediately your heart rate goes up because you're pumping more blood out to the extremities. Your eyes become really narrow, and because you're focused, you're really intent on what you're looking at right in front of you. There's not so much blood to the skin, because if you're in fight, flight, or fright, if you're going to fight for your life, you don't want to bleed easily. So there's not so much blood to the skin, it's more to the muscles inside. That's the sympathetic nervous system. There's a whole line of things. Digestion is not important at all. You really need all of your energy to fight to save your life. That's the sympathetic nervous system. Your parasympathetic nervous system is the nervous system that for most of us is only running very well when we're sleeping. That's the only time, because we have such stressful lives that we're in some state of sympathetic dominance all the time, or the vast majority of the time. So when you sleep, when you have sound sleep, that's when your parasympathetic nervous system is running, and that's the only time you heal from any injury, is when you have parasympathetic dominance. And most of us, the only time we're parasympathetic dominance is when we're sleeping. So it's critically important when you're dealing with any health issue that one thing on your checklist, at the top of the checklist, after, and arguably Missy would say before, and I would not argue with her, but as important as a half ounce of water per pound body weight every single day of the cleanest water you can drink, is to make sure you get enough sleep. So Misty, how is it that you've become the expert to talk about this subject of sleep? What brings you into this world?
Well, my journey started back in 2011 when I went in for a routine surgery. It's supposed to be routine surgery for a cyst on my left ovary. And this 25-minute outpatient surgery turned into a 2.5-hour affair because they discovered endometriosis once they opened me up. And on their way out, they stitched up part of my small intestine, which was not part of the surgery protocol. And I endured 6 days of not being able to keep food and water down, a follow-up surgery, and, all of the things that go along with that kind of trauma to the body. And after I was sent home, they admitted me for the second surgery. After I was sent home, I didn't sleep for 144 hours. And it was a unbelievably shocking and traumatic, dramatic experience for me. And I think that's really where my interest in sleep started because, first of all, I don't know many people who have gone extended periods of time without sleep. 2 people come to mind that I've talked to over the years. One person that went, I think he said 9 days without sleep, which to me is like, how are you even alive? It's unbelievably dangerous to not sleep at night for an extended period of time like that. And then, as I started trying to pick up the pieces of my life after this surgery, I was dealing with all sorts of symptoms, things, Dr. Tom, that you talk about a lot in your community. I was dealing with brain fog and lots of fatigue. I had some markers that were concerning that they might be, trending me toward autoimmune disease or something like Hashimoto's. And I couldn't get help from my doctors. And I started looking at alternative medicine and worked with a chiropractor who asked me about my sleep. And it was then that I discovered that going to bed at 2 a.m. is very bad. And I should be waking up in the morning feeling refreshed. And that was such a novel idea to me at the time. I don't remember, even as a teenager, ever waking up in the morning not feeling groggy and like I'd been pulled out of this stupor. And my healing journey has been a long road. I think it's probably outside of what we have time to get into here in this conversation, but it's been long and it's been scary. And there have been many times in my journey where I've dealt with sleep challenges. So as someone who has a community, the Healing Rosie community of women who all are dealing with some level of sleep disturbance as part of their symptoms that are presenting, it was clear to me that we needed to have a bigger conversation about sleep. And certainly I've done a lot in my own life to improve my sleep, but there are people who have way more expertise than I do, you being one of them, around how the body functions. And I wanted to create some space to bring these people together and really help all of us elevate around sleep. Because just like you said, it's the most important part of healing in the body. Harvard Medical School calls sleep the 3rd pillar of good health. And that's for good reason. Because if you're not sleeping, you're not healing. And, what is our goal in doing all of this work together and learning together? We want to heal. And if we're not sleeping and not healing, then, it really kind of impacts all of our missions. So your best sleep ever born.
Very, very true. Very true. So for your questions about sleep, you can start sending in questions on sleep and we'll ask Misty about them. In the meantime, Misty, so as you explored all of this in the world of necessity, because no one gave you any guidance on this, what have you found out? What are some of the pearls that you found out?
Yeah, early on, I was really fortunate. So when I had my surgery, they found endometriosis. They found 3 polyps in my uterus and removed my left ovary along with that cyst. I was diagnosed with endometriosis, and my doctor told me after the surgery was over and we were doing our follow-up that we don't know what causes endometriosis. You can Google it. And so I did start having to Google. I went to my main doctor after her and asked my main doctor, hey, I'm experiencing all these symptoms. Can we run labs? We need to get to the bottom of what's going on. Misty, your labs are normal. Things are fine. And, I really wish we lived in a world where every doctor was like Dr. Tom. But the truth is that there's a lot of doctors out there who really don't understand how the body works. And so my initial searching took me into the paleo ancestral health space. And I started learning about circadian biology and our circadian rhythms from people like Dave Asprey and Ben Greenfield. And immediately that's what I did. Initially, I'm like, okay, I've got to fix my sleep. And I started hearing about the benefits of wearing amber glasses. So I bought my first pair, and back in those days, all I could find was like safety goggle looking amber glasses. But that's what I wore. And that made a really marked improvement on my ability to fall asleep at night, because I was filtering out all that blue light that's communicating through my SD into my brain that it's daytime and I'm not able to move into that parasympathetic state. So amber glasses have been really helpful to me.
Let's talk about that, Misty. Let's talk about that for a minute, because many people just do not know what you're talking about. So the lenses that we look at life through, meaning our glasses, have a big effect on what the messages are that go back in the brain. So Misty, can you tell us a little about that?
Yeah. So, blue light enters our eyes. There's two ways that I've uncovered, and Dr. Tom, maybe you could even contribute to this a little bit if it's meaningful for your audience, that the body regulates timing across the different organs of the body, across all of your cells. One way is through light, and the other way is through magnetism. We think about Schumann's resonance and the Earth's magnetic field. And I'm sure you've probably heard, if you've been in this space a while, about the benefits of things like grounding and how important it is to be aware of EMFs and their impact on the body. It's because our bodies are electrical and we're sensitive to all of that stuff. So when you think about sleep and the role that sleep has to play in healing, repairing, and restoring, then it makes sense that light cycles would play a role in that. So it can be really helpful to put the amber glasses on at night as soon as the sun goes down, not before bed, but as soon as the sun goes down, which changes throughout the year, but that's what our bodies are used to. Another thing that's right along these same lines is going out and making sure you're getting that morning sun on your face first thing in the morning, because these two things really help the body reset properly. And when you're getting your brain and your hypothalamus and everything to reset properly, it's communicating with the rest of the body. You can start bringing everything back in tune, so to speak, and it just supports the body working better and healing better. So the circadian stuff is hugely important. And I actually learned in one of my interviews that there are blue light receptors even in our red blood cells. So red blood cells are at the level of our skin. So it's not enough just to put the amber glasses on to filter out the blue light. If you've got a lot of blue light in your environment and that's hitting your skin, then it's telling your body to reduce or suppress melatonin. So, there's these things that modern life we see as these great conveniences that are actually detrimental to our body's ability to move into the healing state that we need in order to get our health back. So that was a new one for me, actually, learning about that. I got the room darkening curtains and found out, man, there's a lot of light in this room I didn't know about. The smoke detector, and in the bathroom, the curling iron that's plugged in and off, but it still has a light on it. And, there's so many things in our rooms that we're not thinking about, that even though our eyes are closed, our skin is still picking up that signal, and it's keeping us from sleeping as deep as we could. So yeah, early on, that was the kind of stuff that I started learning that really impacted my health overall. And certainly I was doing the dietary things like what you recommend to your community, Dr. Tom, but there's more to it than that. And that's why I think this is such an important conversation.
I fully agree with you. Let me do a couple of shout outs here. Karen says that basic membership to Green Med Info is less than $10 a month. Awesome info. Thanks, Karen. Yeah, I guess it was $89 a year. That's the number that stayed with me for some reason. Wanda says, hello. Amal's asking a question about a client. Amal, if we have time, we'll get back to it for you. It's a lot of information here. Helen says, are we talking about insomnia? My daughter, who has an active mind, says she has struggled to fall asleep since age 15. Yesterday, they gave her Dramamine. I want to help her naturally. Thank you. Yep, you bet. That's what this topic is about. And so many people have problems falling asleep, and they just think it's normal. So kids don't tell their parents about it. So parents, you need to ask your kids, how long before you fall asleep? How long are you awake when we turn the lights off? And see what kind of answers you get. It might startle you. It really might startle you. Tracy says, hi from London. Hey, Tracy. Maria asks, how do adaptogens work? Well, that's an hour in itself or more. But the basic, there are three premises to adaptogens. First, they're non-specific, meaning they help the entire body. Second, they do no harm. And third, they improve function. Those three criteria are required to be categorized as an adaptogen. And for every 4,000 herbs, there's one that's an adaptogen. So they're pretty rare. They're really great. Some of you have heard me talk before about Sun Horse Energy. Sun, like the sun, Sun Horse Energy. Go to their website. What they talk about is very real. Gabriela is here from Peru. Hello, Gabriela. Nice to see you. Tia asks, any great tips on how to heal neuroendocrine dysfunction caused by pharmaceutical injury? First thing, rebuild the microbiome. Most important thing, rebuild the microbiome and go back to old Facebook Lives where we talk about that a lot. Or you can certainly work with my team at consultations at theDr.com. Amal asks, how do you spell right? W-R-I-G-H-T. Yep. And somebody comment, he's got lots of books. He's on Amazon. His information is great. Yep, that's true. Colette's here from Lochwinnock, Glasgow. Lochwinnock, Glasgow. Hope I enjoyed London. Thanks so much, Colette. Thank you. Okay, let's move back to sleep and then, do some more shout outs after that. You can put your questions in here about sleep for Misty. Also, if you guys see my brain's a little blah, 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 I'm tired today, and I actually got 3 hours sleep and then set the alarm to wake up a half hour before this, took a shower, and here I am. But my brain's not quite on the same as normal. So it's I had to laugh at that. Barzy is sleeping here next to me, in the room, and I just started laughing. She said, "What's so funny?" I said, "I'm tired. My brain's not." And I'm going to do a thing on sleep with Misty. So this is really great. It works well.
Perfect.
So Misty, what are some of the pearls on enhancing sleep?
So one of the things that I learned from the summit that was really exciting to me, because there are so many women in the Healing Rosie community, and probably in your community too, Dr. Tom, who are dealing with brain fog. And, I've heard, autoimmunity obviously plays a role in brain fog. And it's almost a topic that I feel is danced around. People have some ideas on what you can do. My experience in observing the women in my community who deal with the brain fog issue is that some people are able to resolve it easily. A lot of people really struggle, and the tricks don't seem to work well for them. And Dr. Christine Schaffner came on, and so did Kevin Ballister, and talked about the lymphatic system. And that was really, really interesting to me. Apparently the science and stuff has been coming out in the last few years about the lymphatic system, which is the brain's detoxification system. And I was really interested to learn how that system works in the first place and how important it is to our brain function. And I have a friend actually since 2016 who has had chronic brain fog that has not lifted. He's not had a moment's break from it. I can't even imagine what that life is like. I dealt with brain fog right after all of my surgeries, and it's like my brain was stuffed with cotton and thoughts couldn't get through. And it just was a really frustrating thing that kind of even messes with your identity. I've always been someone who has used my brain to get ahead in my career. And, it's always been something that's been sharp. So super scary when your brain goes offline. And I was interested to hear how important it is that your body's drainage systems overall are working well. And this is a common refrain, talking about how important drainage is to detoxification and things like that. And, we talk about how important the lymphatic system is draining into your colon. You want to make sure all these pathways are open. But there's even another pathway up top, that lymphatic system. And if you're having challenges with any of your other drainage system, your brain actually is unable to drain. And that was like a whoa, like really hearing these great experts talk about this system of the body that impacts our quality of life, like so precisely, was really eye-opening for me. And, I think we all really should be considering the role that sleep plays, because it's in that first half of sleep that your brain actually drains.
So may I say, for people don't know, she's referring to the glymphatic system with a G, G-L-Y. And it's actually a new system of detox in the body that we didn't know about 15 years ago.
It's crazy.
It's hard to imagine, but it was discovered because science improves, and so the equipment's improved, and they know, hey, look at this thing. What's that little tiny vessel? Oh my God, that's a drainage vessel. Well, where's that coming from? Oh, look, it goes up. Oh my God, look at that. And they found that there's a whole drainage system called the lymphatic system in the brain that clears crud out of the brain. And we all get crud. We all get exhaust from cells doing their action, whatever action they've got. You have to get rid of all that.
Right.
And the lymphatic system is a system that does that. And when your body is backed up, like for example, if you don't have enough water, everything gets backed up. So you have to have a half ounce per pound body weight. But when your lymph with an L, your lymphatic system gets backed up, the glymphatic system can't empty into the lymphatic system. And so you're backing your car into a snowbank and the exhaust pipe's all full of snow. So the exhaust comes back up through the car.
Right.
And that's what happens in the brain. That's
that was an excellent analogy. Yes. It terrified me, actually.
Yeah, it should, you know. And so when we have skin problems of any type, that's a suggestive indicator that your lymphatic system is not flushing very well.
That's right.
Right? It's just suggestive. You get little pimples or acne or something, you always want to detox a little bit. You want to make sure that your drainage systems are working. So Misty, so when you talk about in the summit, these doctors, what summit are you referring to?
So this is your best sleep ever. Summit is launching in 2 weeks. We have 40 experts who are joining us with, all dimensions of expertise around the topic of sleep and energy. It's interesting how many sleep conversations we had that actually didn't have anything to do with sleep, like, the tips around going out and making sure you're getting morning sun, and how important practices like meditation and contemplation are to retuning the sympathetic nervous system that is in our hyperactive world, like going at Mach 10 all the time, So there was a lot of conversations that weren't directly sleep related that were all about sleep. And that was unbelievably fascinating too. But we brought these experts together to really help us dive into this topic, because as you know, Dr. Tom, this subject has a lot of dimensions to it, and people have sleep issues for a variety of reasons. And the treatments that you can do based on the issues that you're happening are just as diverse. And so I really wanted to create a space where people could come together and take a look at the interviews that are happening. I really tried my best to structure things so that you could see yourself in the interviews that are right for you and important to you. So you can self-identify, I'm having autoimmune issues, for example. So I want to listen to those talks, or I know I'm dealing with hormonal issues. So I want to listen to those talks, or I know I've got issues. A lot of us are so performance oriented. I did one talk all around the different ways that people basically self-identify into a really stressful persona that impacts their ability to sleep at night. And a lot of what we're dealing with is very self-inflicted. And sometimes it takes someone turning a mirror and describing to us what we're doing and how our minds are working for us to kind of get some perspective. And oh my goodness, aha, I'm actually creating this in my life. And that's
the type of awareness that comes out of exposure, listening to these experts. So
right.
We've already put the link in here. Misty has the Best Sleep Ever Summit that's coming, that starts in 2 weeks. Those of you that have seen Betrayal, that's what a summit is like. In this case, she's got over 40 experts that she's interviewed on the topic of sleep. So it's a critically important topic, and you're going to come up with many different ahas. I want to say to Helen, who was talking about her daughter, who they just gave her Dramamine. She said, what can I do? I believe in finding the root cause. Helen, have your daughter watch this. Watch the summit, the Best Ever Sleep Summit, because you're going to hear the information from 40 different experts on their own area of expertise. So we've got the link there for you. Sachin's here. Sachin says, wow. Hey, Sachin. Nice to see you, my friend. And then he says, wow. And then he says, wow, again. So that's great. Thanks. That's funny. Um, let's see. Luann says, melatonin, good to take being hypothyroid. That's the question. Let me ask you, were there any experts that addressed the topic of melatonin and also hypothyroid?
Yes, it came up quite a bit actually. Melatonin can be useful, certainly in certain situations. Dr. Christine Schaffner talked quite a bit about melatonin. Dr. Roger Murphy uses melatonin in his protocol for autoimmune patients that he shared. And there were several experts that brought up melatonin. It's a very popular sleep hormone. Dr. Michael Bruce is one of the top sleep doctors in the world. And we talked a little bit about melatonin during his interview too. So I think it's something that it seems to be a viable option and a decision that you make working with your doctor as far as whether it's right for you. But certainly it would seem that it's safe to use. There's also a genetic dimension to the melatonin conversation that I found really interesting. I got into this with Dr. Michelle Sands, and some people don't produce as much melatonin as others, and it's genetic. And those people really should consider supplementing melatonin to make sure that your body is able to get into deep sleep so you can repair at night. So it's a big topic. Certainly there are pros and cons. Melatonin doesn't work for everyone, but there's lots and lots of information in these interviews.
That's a really valuable point that you bring up. By listening to over 40 experts, and the people that Misty chose to have in the summit are people that she knew are experts in their field, whatever their field is. And then they talked about their field from the point of view of sleep and how sleep affects their field, whether it's autoimmunity or it's child psychiatry. It didn't matter what their area of expertise is. And so you'll see again and again and again how sleep impacts on things that you would never think it impacts on. I remember when I was, when was that? That was 1972. Okay, 1972. I did a week-long retreat with the head of the Sufi order in the West. His name was Pir Vilayat. And they talked every morning about the value of waking up, watching the sunrise. And so you get up early, it's still kind of dark, and you go outside and you sit in a chair or you sit on the ground or on a pillow, whatever you want. And you just kind of face the horizon that's starting to lighten up, and you listen to the birds that start to wake up and sing their song of welcoming the day. And those changing gradients of light going into your brain just wake up your brain in a way. And then when the sun pops, you're just ready to go and start your day. I mean, there's nothing like that.
Yeah.
And they talk about how, if you watch the sun set, you're calming your brain down. You're doing the triggers of the different frequencies of light going into the eye. Say, okay, it's going to be night time soon. And how do you tell your liver it's time to go night and calm down for the evening? Melatonin. How do you tell your kidneys it's time to calm down now in night time? Because your kidneys can't see if it's night or day out there, day or night. Melatonin. That's the purpose of melatonin. A primary purpose is to tell the body it's night time. And when you're in night time, that's more parasympathetic dominance, and that's when you heal, is in a parasympathetic dominant state. So you're going to hear all of that kind of information from these experts. I want everyone, please register for this, because you'll watch the ones you want to watch, and the ones you don't want to watch, you won't watch. But now you'll have the option, to watch whatever you like. So the link is here for you on that one. Misty, give us one of the case studies on sleep. Yours was really interesting. Give us another one that people could relate to.
So, obviously going 144 hours without sleep was really traumatic. And that was the more traumatic experience that I've had around sleep. But, I started learning early in my journey that I needed to get to bed earlier, and I needed to have as my goal to wake up feeling refreshed. And so I remember moving my 2 a.m. bedtime back to 9 p.m. and getting to bed. And actually, my body would start to fall. It took some time, but my body started falling asleep when it needed to fall asleep. But I would sleep 10, 11, 12 hours sometimes because I was getting to bed so much earlier, and I would still wake up really groggy. And on a whim, I'd heard about the benefits of cold baths to our mitochondria, and I suspected that a lot of my issues had a mitochondrial component. So I started doing these cold baths at night with the intention of improving my mitochondria. And wouldn't you know, about 2 weeks later, I started waking up feeling refreshed in the morning. It was shocking. I remember the first time was like, I woke up and I wasn't really groggy, and I was kind of ready to roll out of bed, and it was confusing because I never had that experience, but it was from cold. And I've since learned, about the benefits of cold. We've got people like Wim Hof who really, really to the extreme tout the benefits of cold therapy. But, certainly you look in athletic performance and everything, cold gets a lot of attention because of the mitochondrial benefits, the way that it reduces inflammation in the body. And, it's very healing. So that was an unexpected little occurrence for me in my journey doing cold baths. And I'm not talking like ice baths. I think the water was 62, 64 degrees. So it was basically tap water that I was sitting in. And it was definitely cold going in, but it's just like jumping in the pool where your body adjusts after about a minute and then things are fine. So that certainly was a really pivotal part of my journey to just resetting my own clock and getting that experience in the morning of waking up refreshed. And as things were on, there was a time that I had mercury fillings improperly removed from my teeth about 2 years later, which crashed all of my hormones and created a lot of sleep issues. And so I've benefited from progesterone for helping my sleep. Dr. Anna Kabeka did a talk on the summit all about progesterone for women in midlife, especially. And it seems that women are more sensitive to drops in progesterone than men in some of the literature. But another one that I experienced as well as estrogen dropping, and of course, the night sweats and the hot sleeping in general that comes with really low estrogen. So for me, being able to incorporate both of these therapies into my own routine made a massive difference on my sleep. And certainly in our community, there are many women who attest the same, that by going and having their hormones checked and getting hormonal support, they were able to really move the needle on their sleep. And, I don't have mixed feelings about hormonal support from the perspective of it absolutely improved my quality of life. But when you're having hormone issues like that, it's the sign that something deeper is going on, and we really have to get after it. And it wasn't
right, and not just the hormone deficiency itself.
That's right. That's right. There's a reason why. Yeah. And in 2018, I connected the dots. Oh, back in 2013, when this happened to me, they removed the mercury fillings. They didn't dam me up, which is what they should have done, removing mercury. And by the way, the dentist and the hygienist weren't protected either. And so they just drilled this out of my mouth, and it completely shut down my hormonal system, shut down methylation. Like, I was in a pretty bad way for a long time and trying all sorts of things to figure it out. So hormone therapy helped, but detoxification helped more, But both of those for me were really great needle movers. And of course, I was just telling you about the room darkening curtains that.
Yeah, by the way, everyone, that's critically important. That's at the very top of the list of sleep equipment, is a dark room, black room, no lights at all in the room, because not only does it go through your skin, it goes through the eyelid. You all know when you're sleeping and all of a sudden you can tell, oh, the lights are on. It's coming through the eyelids. Mm-hmm. Any light in the room will come through the eyelid, register on the eyeball, and go straight back into the brain and on the skin. We have a question here that I wanted. This is from Diane. It says, I've tried capital letters everything. Sadly, I've dealt with chronic severe insomnia for many years. I've gone months with no more than 2 to 3 hours sleep, became incapacitated, having to go on disability, and my husband had to take me to doctors. The most helpful, magnesium spray, magnesium 3-in-8 or glycinate, no lights, turn off EMF routers in the home, melatonin, slow release, grounding, EFT, meditation, etc. Also critical, check for environmental illness, metals, Lyme, mold. These will wreak havoc on your system. I've tried CBD full spectrum recently, and interestingly, it did not help with sleep, but it did help with the brain fog. What else? Diane, the answer, what else, is register for the summit. You're going to hear it from 40 different experts. But I wanted to read this to everyone because this is what people are dealing with, and they think that they're just deficient. There's something wrong with their brain, and it's just this is how I am. It's how my mom was. That's how I am. Yeah, I'm just a little emotional, or whatever it should be. No. We all have wiring to be balanced, stable human beings. We all have the wiring. Sometimes the wires get crossed, and you have to find out why that's happening. So this sleep summit that's coming up in a couple of weeks is just a critical tool. You'll pick up a lot of little pearls in the summit. So with that, it's been over an hour now, and I promised I would not go over an hour. I've promised, because people do this. They're watching it at different times of day. So Misty, let me say thank you so much for being with us. It's clear that you've got no brain fog. And for everyone that's been watching tonight, you see how her brain's just doing this, these points and point after point, and so rational the way she talks about it. This is a person who complained of having severe brain fog. And so you can have the same effects. You can improve the quality of, you've read my book, You Can Fix Your Brain. And if you haven't, pick up on the book, but you can fix your brain. You can develop great sleep habits and have refreshing sleep. And this Best Sleep Ever Summit that the link is here to register for will be a strong tool in that direction. So Misty, thanks so very much for being with us.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate it. Very honored, Dr. Tom.
Thank you. All right, everyone. We'll see you next time.
Bye.
Bye-bye.